I like to come back to basic questions. The question that Prita raised for us last night. Well, why do this? It's boring. It doesn't necessarily stay boring, so then that starts to answer its own question. But even if it's boring for a while, why do it? And there are many differences between a Buddhist view of our own existence and that which has been very prevalent, kind of the view of modernity, if one can speak of such. And one of the views that's very prevalent in our modern society now globally is that if you have normal mental health, if you are not subject to any of something like 300 mental diseases described in the DSM, the Encyclopedia of Mental Diseases, that you are healthy. Now, I read just a couple of days ago, within the last week or so, that this year 1/4 of Americans will be subject to or will fall prey to some diagnosed mental illness. So one out of 4 is pretty intense. But the rest of us, the lucky 3/4, we're normal, and therefore we're supposed to be healthy. Buddhism says you're all sick. That is, normal really sucks. And that if we're taking two things side by side, normal is, well, I'm not suffering from any clinically diagnosed mental disease, and being normal, of course, I'm just frequently, prone to frustration, anger, irritation, disappointment, depression, fleeting, but nevertheless, insomnia, crankiness, grumpiness, pettiness, self-centeredness, shall I continue? And that's just being normal. Well, what do you expect? You're human. You're just merely human. And what we are is just how we evolved, and that's basically all about survival and procreation. And so it's a fundamentally different view of normal is as good as it gets, and normal is the platform to really start doing something meaningful. And so there is a mental condition that is yet to be diagnosed in the DSM, so the Encyclopedia of Mental Diseases, but maybe one day in a far-off land it will actually be included in some list of mental diseases. And my very far-fetched hope is they might actually call it the Wallace Syndrome, because I think I've coined it. I've coined a name for it, and apart from Wallace Syndrome, which is not very informative, but that's the name for it is, I think, very descriptive and very, very accurate. It's called the Obsessive Compulsive Delusional Disorder. And it's ubiquitous, and that's maybe the problem, that the people who are actually writing, the input into the DSM have it. And it's very embarrassing to say, oh, the whole staff, by the way, has this. I mean, that would be really embarrassing. So obsessive, what I mean by this, and again, I'm not referring to OCD, which is a clinically diagnosed mental disorder, which I don't know much about, but there's very good treatment for it, a lot of expertise and knowledge. But I'm not referring to that. I'm using the word somewhat differently. So when I'm using the word obsessive compulsive delusional disorder, the obsessive part is just this. Do we have it within our voluntary control? This is not a rhetorical question. Do we have it within our voluntary control to be mentally quiet while still awake when we wish to? In other words, to mentally stop talking. And if not, why not? That is, if we treated our minds with all the conscientiousness that we treat the kitchen faucet or our general plumbing, then I think we would be absolutely abhorred at what's going on in the mind. This happened to me just a couple of weeks ago. We have one little bathroom, and the toilet, it wouldn't stop running. And it was kind of like, 5-star alert here. That water's just going down and down and down and down, and let's do something quick. I mean, the water bill is going to be astronomical if we just kind of ignore it, walk away, and say, well, what can you do? And so, of course, my wife and I, we jumped right on it. We opened up the toilet lid and got in there and messed around with a plunger, and disaster was averted. But we have minds that flow like a toilet that just, the plunger is unfixable. And it just flows and flows, the blabbermouth mind that just, we wake up in the morning. Does this happen to you? We wake up in the morning, and as soon as we wake up, the mind says, oh, you want me to talk? Sure, I'll just stop talking about, and I'll talk all day until you go comatose. And then I'm going to get you in your dreams. And I will not stop talking for 10 seconds consecutively. I will talk relentlessly. I'll have something to say about everything, and it doesn't matter what drivel it is. It doesn't matter how preposterous or how painful it is. I will continue talking. and you're going to listen. This sounds like something that the East German police would have conjured up, like some really sadistic torture. We're going to get you in the room, and we're going to talk to you relentlessly, and you'll have no earplugs. Imagine this. I would really love to see some neuroscientists do something really valuable, and that they do a lot of valuable things. But here's one valuable thing, and that is get a gizmo. Call it the Wallace gizmo. I really want to get my name on this. And monitor the activity in the frontal cortex, I think especially the left cortex, which is associated with language, internal dialogue, and put it on and just get a Rosetta Stone for the types of brain activity that are taking place in our language center. Get a Rosetta Stone. So you put the cap on, and everybody's got to have one. This is Big Brother talking. And it takes all the activity and translates it into the thoughts you're actually thinking, and then broadcast it out on a little loudspeaker on top of your head, like a beanie. And wherever you go, every thought that you have gets blared out. And if we really want to make it interesting, connect it with a video screen, so all the images that come up also. This is called transparency. And everything that comes up, people can see what the images coming to your mind and hear all of the internal commentary. And that would be the end of human civilization. And we've gotten used to it. And we take it to be normal. Whereas frankly, it's just insane. It's insane, like, I think back to when I was a teenager growing up in Southern California, in the LA basin, in 1960s, and I was played varsity tennis. And I remember, and this is when the smog, I think, was maybe the worst in LA history, because there was no smog emissions control, forget it. So we had all these big 8-cylinder Detroit, cars just spewing out this toxic stuff. You couldn't see the mountains, you could hardly see your hand, speaking a little bit with exaggeration. And so playing varsity tennis in the LA basin, we learned, because we're playing in the heat of the day, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're playing tournaments and so forth, and we learned you never take a deep breath. This is serious. You never take a deep breath, because out on the tennis court, if you take a deep breath, you know what's going to follow? So you learn how to play singles tennis taking little staccato breaths, and then you don't cough. And we got used to that, and that was normal. So I think these are comparable. It's really unhealthy. Somebody finally woke up, maybe we shouldn't tolerate this? And why, really, what is the enormous tolerance we've given to having this blabbermouth mind that just will not shut up? That's the obsessive part. I think that's bad enough. That right there is enough reason to meditate. It's just that when we want to have 10 seconds respite, a 15, 20-minute respite without being comatose, to actually be able to be quiet and enjoy the silence. And that's a voluntary thing we can do at will. That just strikes me as a basic criterion of sanity. And not being able to do that is just weird. That's the obsessive part, but this disease has 3 parts to it. That's just the first one, right? And mindfulness of breathing is direct remedy. It's the medicine for that. That is, we breathe out, breathe out, breathe out. Just see if we can release all that turbulent, chaotic energy behind the blabbermouth mind that just can't shut up, because it's obsessive. So I think right there, that's enough for me to meditate, even if with nothing beyond. It's just intolerable to have a mind that just obsessively won't shut up until I get hit on the head with an anvil, have brain damage or fall deep asleep. And that's the only time I get any quiet, and then I'm not even conscious enough to enjoy it. That really sucks. But it's worse than that. There's this compulsive aspect to it. And that is these thoughts, these free associated thoughts, images, and so forth, they come up. And it's not that they just arise in the mind, like blah, 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 but the thoughts arise, and then compulsively, it's like they all have this, they're sticky, they're like flypaper, and they catch, and then they drag the mind, the attention all over the place to the reference of all the thoughts. So we compulsively identify with thoughts, instead of just being able to be spacious with this, that is just attending to this cacophony of thoughts and images arising. You say, wow, what a traffic jam. It's actually, these thoughts are abducting us. They're throwing us in the trunk and driving all over the place from one referent to another, helplessly, as the mind is being jacked around all over the place, from one referent to another, and it's just compulsive. It's like just being kidnapped every 5 seconds, abducted, taken away. It's called cognitive fusion. We're not thinking thoughts, they're thinking us, capturing us and carrying us away. There's no